Hi, this is Graham Helfrich, Technical Advisor Manager for the Engineering Software here at IHS Markit. Welcome to the weekly Did You Know episode, where we learn how to do something of value that you probably didn't know about your IHS Markit engineering software. Today's topic is about creating a better type well. So, back in episode 1, we learned how we can fend off the survivor bias effect of an average rate by appending the declines from our individual wells to our type well. Now in this episode, we're going to look at an alternative technique to better do our type wells by considering the well count. Did you know you can do all this in Harmony Enterprise? Let's check it out. So here in Harmony Enterprise, I've made a 40 well group based on these green wells. These wells are all analogous to each other, and we can see that each well has its own unique production history. Of course, you can use your own daily production data, or you can use monthly volumes from Enerdeck or AccuMap. So we'll launch our type well. We can do it for any fluid. In this case, we'll do gas. And we see a very familiar plot. It's operated gas rate and normalized time. And each of our 40 wells are represented there, with the average being the thick line in the middle. One thing we notice is these wells are cleaning up. The peak rate, it doesn't happen right away. And so something that we'll see people use is this button here. It finds the peak rate for each well, and it shifts the start time to begin at time 0. So that means all the cleanup data is kind of before time 0, and this allows every well to basically be declining from time 0 moving forward. So this simple button lets you do that really quickly, find the peak rate, and set it to time 0. So let's go ahead and fit a decline to this average rate, and it does a fit there. And I'm using a DLIM here with a 7% terminal decline where it'll switch to exponential. And in this case, my B value is 0.57. So what can we do to improve our best fit here? Well, one thing we can do is consider the well count through time. So this button up here, this will show the well count in black. So we see that there are a lot of wells that have at least 18 months of production history. This is a well count here, 40 wells. And then there are fewer wells that have longer production history. And what this means is when we're fitting our decline on this average rate, we may want to focus our attention more heavily on where we have a higher well count, more wells representing the average rate. And in order to do that, let's add another decline. So I'm going to rename this initial one my decline analysis on all wells. And we'll add a second decline. And this time, I'm going to use this best fit option here. And what this will do is show me a couple things. We've got our average rate here, and this is our well count. So we have this really cool option where you can drag how you want the best fit to match on the average rate. So in this case, I'm moving this line to say that I want at least 40 wells to be used when I do my best fit. So it's basically ignoring the average rate where we have a fewer well count. Okay, so I'll say OK to this. And we'll notice that now we have a new decline and a new forecast. We have the original one below where we ignore the well count, and we have the more optimistic forecast above where we focus the best fit only in the earlier time where we have at least 40 wells producing. So I can rename this decline okay. So that's pretty much it. That is an option to provide a more reliable type well, a more reliable forecast using the well count. Now, just for the sake of comparison, I've already done an individual decline on each of these 40 or so wells. And what I want to do is I can actually, again, this is a review of video number 1, but we can append the individual declines to create a new average. So the average now includes both the history of the wells plus the average of all the individual forecasts. And if we were to apply a decline, including all the appended declines. We can rename this. We see that the two forecasts are quite similar. What I mean is the only real outlier is the decline or the best fit if we match on all of the history, ignoring the well count. Instead, if we do a best fit where we consider only the first first wells where there's at least 40 wells producing to make that average, we get this best match. Alternatively, if we append all the individual declines from each of the wells to create a new average, including the individual forecasts, we get a very similar match and forecast using these last two methods. So you can either use the well count through time, or you can also append the declines as shown in video number 1. So what does this really mean for you? Well, there's a lot of ways to fend against this idea of survivor bias when we do type well and our best fit. What I've just shown you here today is focusing on the well count and matching your decline on that portion of the average rate. Or as in video number 1, we can also append the individual declines to our type well to make that average include both the history and the individual forecasts. That's really important. It's going to give you a more reliable type well and a more reliable forecast for your next well. This next thing is, if all of your engineers are using this technique where they consider the well count when they do their type well, it's going to add consistency in their results. And that's it. I want to thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please call or email me, and subscribe to be notified of next week's Did You Know episode.